wanted to ask you, as a student, you were at Central. This is
Yeah.
going to when you, because you were just in your second year, weren't you? When you got your break in Martin Guerre.
Yes.
That must have been quite a gamble, wasn't it, to go?
Just talking musicals with you.
I suppose so. I'd done a year and a half at Central. So the first year, I did a 3-year acting course. And so the first year was all the foundation stuff and movement, the voice, text and text work. You do Chekhov, you do Shakespeare comedy and stuff. So that's your kind of you use all your foundation skills that you learn is in that first year. And in the second year, you start to put them to use, and you start doing I think you do your Shakespeare tragedy and stuff, and yeah, this opportunity came up, and I went to see the head of acting at the time was Pippa Alien, who is the casting director. Pippa Alien, she'd taken time out from being a casting director and came to run the acting course at Central. Bonkers. Remember her directing me actually as Rosalind in As You Like It. That's what she directed me in my first year. And I went to see her and I said, I got this job. And she said, well, the thing is, you came to Central for your end goal to get a job and to get an agent and to get a good job. And you've got a good job. You're working with a brilliant director. And you've now got an agent. So this is probably the best springboard that you could possibly have. I mean, who knows what, if I'd have said no and finished my third year, but what you're doing in your third year, I know you're practicing your skills, but your aim is to get an agent and get a job. So she said, do it. She goes, you'll learn more probably being in this show and learning all through the rehearsals of it, and learning working with these people and getting to work one-on-one with Bubel and Schomburg and Declan Donnellan and stuff. Yeah. You can't get that in drama school. I mean, you get to work with some people, but to be working one-on-one with those people in a job and getting paid, do it. So I did.
That was the best advice. What a brilliant person to go to and get advice from. Weren't you lucky?
Yeah, extremely lucky. Yeah.
And that brings me, I suppose, it's an elongation of what's your favourite musical of all time. How about what's your favourite musical that you've ever been in? Which the one that you've had the most fun on, or the one that challenged you most?
I've been ever so lucky that I've had some fantastic jobs. And each character I've played, I individually adore every single one, and whatever part it was, I have always wanted to play that part, if you know what I mean. So to get those jobs has always been a yes for me. So I have loved every single one, and that's such a hard question because there is parts of every single one that I adore.
Mary Poppins must have been on that list.
Well, Mary Poppins have been to say yes to the show twice. That will always have a special place in my heart. You never know, maybe in 10 years I'll come back and play the Birdwoman. Who knows? Things happen in threes. But I think the most overall, I think it has to be Lily Vanessa and Kiss Me Kate, because it's an incredible role for any woman to get a chance to play, and I thought I would never get a chance to play it. So that was the one job that I got, that when I heard I got it, I just burst into tears, because it was just like, oh my God, this is the best female role probably ever written. And I'm getting to do it. I mean, you have to be funny, you have to be dramatic, you have to do Shakespeare, you do comedy dialogue, you are belting your head off, you're singing top soprano stuff. It's literally everything is flung at that character.
Yeah.
And getting to do it at the Crucible in Sheffield, which is one of my favourite theatres, was just a dream come true. So I think I just wish we had longer to do it, because we did it for the Christmas season, so you were there for 6 weeks. But yeah, I think with everything musically, dramatically, everything. I think Kiss Me Kate probably is my favourite that I've done.
I'm not surprised. It was also Cole Porter's favourite show out of all of his shows, I think, as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty bloody great.
Yeah.
I think Hairspray is an absolutely brilliant piece of theatre. I think it's got a wonderful message. I think the music is fantastic. I love the time period it's in. It's joyful, and it will always be one of my favourite jobs that I've done. But I also have loved watching it in the theatre. I love Carousel, because my heart is with those old school Rodgers and Hammerstein, Jerome Kern, Gershwin musicals. That's where I get my kicks.
Yeah.
And I just love Carousel because it's a difficult show. I mean, really difficult subject matter.
Yeah.
But particularly the If I Loved You sequence, that sort of, gosh, is it 12 minutes? Something like that, of a sequence of writing is my favourite part of, musical theatre writing ever.
And I've read in an interview that you're talking about that because when you played Julie, that you were in a much smaller space. That was at the Kiln, wasn't it? No, wait a minute.
That was the Arcola, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recall you talking about the way that you wanted to be brave and the way that you wanted to actually play that part because it was in a smaller space.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of I'm slightly changing my opinion on this now. You know how we grow when we get older. I often say about what I love working in small spaces, which is why I appreciate the Fringe and off West End theatre so much in London, is you don't have to play up to the gods. You can everywhere. It's very intimate, and it's you don't have to push. And that's why at the time I loved playing Julie at the Arcola in that small space, because I absolutely was never going to display too much emotion. It was going to keep it completely internal, and because I believe that's sort of who Julie is. She's not she's not an extrovert. She's a very sensitive, damaged person who is internalizing a lot. And so I was really testing myself in stillness and making things, and never displaying or showing too much. And I didn't realize it was going to be so effective as it was. I mean, I believe that whole show worked really well, but I didn't realize the power of that kind of performance before. And the reason why I'm slightly changing my opinion on things is I'd love to think that the smallness of the performance that I gave in that would have read at a 3-tier West End theatre, and it's possible that it would have,
Yeah.
So I've just been watching Uncle Vanya on that's on iPlayer at the moment, and I was thinking, have these performers adjusted their performance because they're on screen rather than if they were doing it in the theatre? And I don't think they have. I think they're playing the character truthfully,
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we perhaps, particularly as musical theatre performers, where we're possibly trained in a certain style of performance, that I think we possibly don't give ourselves enough credit that you can actually just be a bit more and don't. I'm trying to think of the word I'm thinking about. When you sort of project and display and you emote too much, kind of thing. I worry that we do ever so slightly sometimes overdo things in theatre, possibly because some of the books of musicals, some of them aren't the best. I think that the writing sometimes doesn't serve as well as a play, or the good plays.
But you have to sometimes enhance it slightly, don't you? Exaggerate it because of the size of the building that you're in.
You do sometimes, yeah. And I suppose that's just being theatrical as opposed to screen. I don't know. I'm interested by it. I'm interested by not projecting up, feeling like we have to hit everything to the very back wall so much. I don't know.
I tell you who does that with bells on and is the absolute mistress of it. Dame Judi Dench.
Yes.
Isn't she fantastic? I saw her singing Send in the Clowns at the National, and it was so personal. It was so introvert, I suppose, the way that she just delivered it, and she just sitting on the bed and just not showing anything, and she was still, and she blew me away. I just sat there. I was watching it on my own, and I even if I had been with anybody, I would have been able to speak for at least 20 minutes after that. It remained, and also that performance has remained with me forever, because it is such a, if you do that right, it is so powerful.
Completely. I think it's when you bring people in, bring the audience to you rather than you like slapping the audience around the face with your performance. It's having, but that's what makes a star. Someone who has so confident in their own aura and their own presence that they know that they can, there's a magnetism that they don't need to push. The audience will come to them. That's hard to teach. It's hard. It's just that magical quality that people like Judi Dench certainly have.
So that's Carousel, going back to your favourites, and
yes.
Hairspray. And going back to the first choice, Hairspray, you were on tour with Hairspray, weren't you? Mm-hmm. And that, normally people say when they're on tour, oh, it's exhausting being on tour, and away from home and all the rest of it. But when you've got a company that works right together, that tour and I gather that tour worked well together. It must have been like being on one long holiday.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It really did work well together, and that's the combination of excellent casting, really lovely group of people. I've got friends on that show that I will always have, like Lucy Benjamin and I got on like a house on fire, who played Velma, my mum, Paul Ryder, Mark Benton, Daniel Stockton, amazing people, and another reason why that show worked well is our rehearsal process was, as it always should be, was as detailed, diligent, and focused as a West End production will be. Of course, it should be that. Of course, it should be.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've done tours where we've had a week less rehearsal or something because of budgets and financial things.
Yeah.
But on that tour, we actually had Jack O'Brien and Jerry Mitchell came in for a day or a couple of days to actually work with us. We had other than that, we had the incredible creative team, giving us the direction that we would have the same that we would have had if we'd had Jack O'Brien and Jerry Mitchell in the room for the whole time. So it was set up absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah.
Then you've also got the fact that it's such a feel-good show. I remember the choreographer, or the associate choreographer, the wonderful Helen, who taught us all the choreography, saying the thing a bit about this show is you can come into the theatre at 5:30, being in whatever awful mood because of your day. As a performer, whatever's happened at 10 o'clock that night, you will be in a brilliant mood because the show just naturally takes you on that journey. And it's true, that show has this effect on you. You can't help but have a joyful time.
Just talking musicals with you.